I almost feel like I'm on an apology tour right now because over the past couple weeks I've been going back and playing a couple of different games that when they first released I didn't really give them much of a chance to impress me, and instead I shelved them indefinitely. Of course, Doom: The Dark Ages was one of those games. Now, I've been a fan of the Doom franchise since the first game dropped in 1993. And despite that fact, when Doom: The Dark Ages came out last year, I played like maybe a little bit of the first level, and I said, this game, it's just not resonating with me. But after listening to people talk about it and going back and playing it again, boy was I wrong about it. What's going on, everyone? This is Sergeant Sentinel with another Sergeant Sentinel gaming video game review. Now, the game that I'm talking about is Doom: The Dark Ages, and for those of you that don't know, it actually released May of last year, May 15th to be exact. It was developed by id Software and published by Bethesda Softworks. Now, unlike its predecessor, Doom Eternal, it was not released for last generation consoles and is only a current generation game, meaning it's only available on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series consoles. Now, technically this game is a sequel, but in reality, it's actually positioned as a prequel, taking place many years before the events of Doom 2016 and, of course, Doom Eternal. And the premise is that the Night Sentinels of Argent and the Makers are in a war with Hell armies over the heart of Argent. Now, Doomslayer's kept controlled by a device called the Tether, and it basically allows the Creedmaker to keep him 100% under his control so that Doomslayer cannot have free will, so to speak, as far as going to the aid of innocence. Now, King Novik, he's the king of the Night Sentinels, and his daughter, Commander Thira, are fighting against Prince Azrak, Ahzrak, who is a Prince of Hell, with limited success. Now, after a surprising defeat, of course, the Slayer is forced to fight against impossible odds, even as he himself is kind of in a situation he's never been before in order to free his allies from the control of the demonic prince and to save the Night Sentinels and their people from the clutches of Hell's armies. This is all explained both through cutscenes and in-game exposition, and the way it all comes together is actually very well written. And I know for people who play the Doom games, that's not much of a surprise, but for those of you that might not be familiar with just how high quality the universe is crafted, this game is no exception, and it's very well done, and it leans heavily into the established lore from Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal while establishing new background story regarding the Night Sentinels that we've seen in, like I said, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, as well as the Slayer himself. It kind of shines a new light on him as far as who he is and what his motivations are as it pertains to his allies. Now, for those of you looking for the too long didn't read summary of that, basically, Doom: The Dark Ages shows the history behind some of these factions, such as the Makers, the Night Sentinels, and it shows how Doomslayer ties into that, and how he's actually come to their aid in combat, how he has tremendous intestinal fortitude to stand against basically what he perceives as injustice, because the Makers don't really want to get too involved with helping out the Night Sentinels and their people, and of course seeing innocents suffer, that's not something that the Slayer is willing to put up with, and he actually puts his own life at risk in order to do the right thing. Now, we've seen bits and pieces of that, of course, in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, but this expands upon that. Now, I do want to say that Doom: The Dark Ages is a slower, more grounded experience when you compare it to Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, which, of course, if you've seen the gameplay clips, if you've seen everything surrounding these games. They're significantly fast-paced, a lot of different types of traversal, but that's not the case with Doom: The Dark Ages. It does kind of balance that out with internal game mechanics, such as the shield that you don't have in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. But with that being said, there are a lot of different gameplay elements that are extremely similar as far as how his weapons are customizable and how different types of weapons have different purposes in combat. Now, at the start of Doom Eternal, of course, it's right after Doom 2016, and in Doom 2016, the chaos is limited to Mars, and it's remote from Earth, but of course, during the events of Doom Eternal, we see that the Hell armies have basically invaded Earth, and Doom: The Dark Ages is similar in the fact that the areas inhabited by the Night Sentinels and their people have been invaded by the Hell armies, of course, and it's all about this Argent energy, with the exception that it's about the heart of Argent, I believe is what they call it. And so the whole premise revolves around this tremendous source of power that they want, that's going to basically allow them to vanquish, it's going to allow the Hell armies to vanquish the Night Sentinels and have complete dominion over their realms, uncontested, I guess. And again, you see the same type of theme in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. It's about conquest, but it's also about absolute power. And as they reveal in-game, and I'm not going to go into spoilers, obviously, but as they reveal in-game, in Doom: The Dark Ages, the power that they're after is tremendously significant. It's much greater than even the Doomslayer, and he himself is not able to compare to the power that they reveal that exists in this game in the heart of Argent, I believe is what it's called. Yep, it's the heart of Argent. It's hard, though. It's hard to explain what that means without going into spoilers, but like I said, I'm not going to put spoilers in this video, so if you haven't played Doom: The Dark Ages, don't worry. I'm not going to put that in here so that it spoils your experience. What I will tell you, though, is what the heart of Argent actually is. It is kind of surprising. It does catch you a little bit by surprise, but if you're paying attention to some of the clues, you might be able to pick up on it. But that's only a small portion of this game. Obviously, the real star of Doom: The Dark Ages is the slight change in gameplay, but how it still feels so powerful, so epic, with every blow that the Doomslayer lands, with every shot he fires. It feels as if you're in a fight for your life, but not necessarily where you're overwhelmed. Even if you're surrounded by tons of bad guys, it still feels as if you're capable enough to vanquish all your foes, even whenever you have to fight against the Prince and the Witch, of course, because there's a boss fight where you have to fight against both of them. It still feels like you have all the necessary tools, even though you're more grounded, even though you're slower. You still have all the necessary tools that you need to vanquish both of them and come out on top victorious. Despite the fact that you start this game and the conflict is already going on, through the cutscenes and through your interactions with the antagonist, it definitely feels like he's earned his place as the chief bad guy in this conflict. It doesn't feel like it was just handed to him. He's definitely powerful, he's definitely significant, and he's definitely a very bad guy. So it's great to have a very volatile antagonist to oppose the Doomslayer, even if he's not as powerful as the Doomslayer is. Now, something else I wanted to talk about is that there's different types of gameplay situations, I guess, in this game that adds depth to it as well. In addition to the normal enemies that you have to face, there are huge enemies that the Doomslayer himself isn't going to face, but he will require certain tools and allies in order to face them. Now, one of those is, of course, turrets. There are turrets that he can employ which are able to take out normal-sized enemies as well as the skyscraper enemies. But in addition to the turrets, there's also a flying dragon-like creature that some of the levels will require just to navigate to different areas so that he can land on certain areas and take out certain objectives. There's also a huge mechanized suit, kind of like those you might see in Pacific Rim, that he will enter, and it allows him to take on these skyscraper enemies and be able to fight them with melee attacks. And when he builds up the attack meter to a certain point, he'll have shoulder-mounted cannons, which kind of act like a single-shot turret that have devastating effect on these enemies. So that's pretty cool that they put it in. Now, those sections aren't like 50-50 with the on-ground gunplay sections, but they're enough to where it feels like it's a meaningful part of this game. And putting those in this game really helped to give it something new that the original, or well, I say original, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal didn't have present. After the events of Doom Eternal, I wasn't sure where the series could go, because Doom Eternal pushed it pretty much as far as it could in the present timeline, and I'm like, where can it possibly go? id Software pulled a genius move by sending it back to the past, because it explores the lore and history of the Doomslayer, but also of the Night Sentinels, and it does so in a very meaningful, action-packed way. Yes, the Doomslayer in the past is more like a tank, but it doesn't feel like it's any less of an experience than Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal. It's very well crafted. The story is great. The characters are amazing. And I would have to say, this is quite possibly my favorite Doom game out of the recent games from id Software, which is saying a lot because I absolutely love 2016 and Doom Eternal. But what are your thoughts about Doom the Dark Ages? Have you tried it yet? Are you kind of hesitant? Are you a fan of the older games but not necessarily the newer games? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you did enjoy this video, hit that like button, and last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I do greatly appreciate it. Anyway, that's it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. This is Sergeant Sentinel. Take it easy, gamers.